She spat on the black waitress. Then her husband walked in. "You call this coffee? My dog wouldn't drink this garbage." The words shot across the small restaurant like bullets, and every customer turned to look. Victoria Ashford slammed her cup down so hard that the brown liquid splashed across the white tablecloth, and her face twisted with disgust as she glared at the waitress standing before her. Maya Johnson, a 52-year-old black woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her hair, stood frozen with her notepad still in her hand. She had been working at Rosie's Diner in downtown Atlanta for 3 years now, and she had seen difficult customers before. But something about the hatred in this woman's eyes told her that today would be different. Victoria wore diamonds on her fingers and a designer dress that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, and she looked at Maya like she was looking at dirt on her expensive shoes. The other waitresses watched from behind the counter, too scared to move, too scared to speak. As the restaurant fell into a terrible silence, Maya took a slow breath and reminded herself why she was here, why she chose to work this job even though she didn't need the money. She loved people. She loved serving them, talking to them, hearing their stories. After 40 years of working as a nurse in the emergency room, she had retired early because her body was tired, but her heart still wanted to help others. So she took this simple job at Rosie's Diner, where she could pour coffee and make people smile and feel useful again. "I'm very sorry, ma'am," Maya said softly, keeping her voice calm and respectful even though her hands were shaking. "I'll bring you a fresh cup right away. Sometimes the machine makes it a little too strong, and I should have checked it first." She reached for the cup, but Victoria pulled it away from her with a sharp movement. The hatred in the wealthy woman's eyes only grew stronger, and Maya suddenly understood that this had nothing to do with coffee at all. "Don't you dare touch anything on this table with your dirty hands," Victoria hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. A young mother in the corner covered her daughter's ears, and an elderly man near the window shook his head in disgust. But Victoria didn't care about any of them. She only saw Maya, and in Maya she saw someone she believed was beneath her, someone who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as her. Maya had seen this look before, many times in her life, and it always hurt the same way. It hurt like a knife in the chest. But she was a professional, and she had promised herself long ago that she would never let hatred steal her dignity. "Ma'am, I truly apologize if I've done something to upset you," Maya said gently, taking a small step back. "Please tell me how I can make this right." Victoria laughed, and it was an ugly sound that made the whole restaurant uncomfortable. She stood up from her chair, towering over Maya in her high heels, and pointed her finger right in Maya's face. "Make it right. You want to make it right." Victoria's voice was getting louder, more dangerous. "You people always want to make things right after you mess everything up. But you can never make anything right because you don't know how." The words "you people" hung in the air like poison, and everyone knew exactly what she meant. The cook came out from the kitchen, a big man named Robert, who looked ready to step in, but Maya held up her hand to stop him. She didn't want anyone losing their job because of her. She didn't want violence. She just wanted this moment to pass like a storm, leaving behind only rain and then sunshine again. But Victoria wasn't finished. Her face had turned red with anger, and her whole body was shaking as if Maya had committed some terrible crime against her. "I want to speak to your manager right now," Victoria demanded. "I want you fired today. People like you should not be serving people like me. Do you understand? You should be grateful that I even let you stand near my table." Maya felt tears forming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had survived too much in her life to cry over cruel words from a stranger. She had buried her husband 10 years ago after he lost his battle with cancer. She had raised 2 children alone and put them both through college. She had worked double shifts in the emergency room for decades, saving lives, holding hands of dying patients, delivering babies, and bringing people back from the edge of death. She had earned her peace, and no one could take it from her. "The manager isn't here today," Maya said quietly, "but I can give you the owner's phone number if you'd like to file a complaint." This answer made Victoria even angrier, and what happened next shocked everyone in the restaurant. Without warning, Victoria gathered the saliva in her mouth, leaned forward, and spat directly into Maya's face. The spit landed on Maya's cheek and dripped down slowly as gasps filled the room. Time seemed to stop. Maya didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there with spit on her face, while Victoria smiled with satisfaction. The bell above the restaurant door jingled, and a tall man in an expensive suit walked in. He was looking at his phone at first, not paying attention to anything around him. But then he heard the gasps. He heard the whispers. He looked up and saw his wife standing over an older black woman, and he saw the spit dripping down that woman's face. His blood went cold. His phone slipped from his fingers and crashed to the floor, but he didn't even notice, because he knew that face. He knew those kind eyes. He knew those gentle hands that had once held him when he was dying on a cold street corner in Chicago, 25 years ago. "Maya," he whispered, his voice breaking like glass. Victoria spun around, surprised to see her husband Richard standing there. She hadn't expected him for another hour. "Richard, darling, you won't believe what this horrible woman did to me," she started, ready to tell her version of events. But Richard wasn't listening to her. He was staring at Maya with tears streaming down his face, and he was walking toward her like she was a ghost from his past. Everyone watched in confusion as this wealthy businessman pulled napkins from the nearest table and began gently wiping the spit from Maya's face. His hands were trembling, and he kept saying "I'm so sorry" over and over again. Victoria stood frozen, her mouth open, unable to understand what was happening. "Richard, what are you doing?" she demanded. "Get away from her. She's just a waitress." But Richard turned to look at his wife, and for the first time in their 10 years of marriage, she saw something in his eyes that scared her. It was anger, deep, powerful anger mixed with something that looked like disgust. "Just a waitress," Richard repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "This woman is the reason I'm alive today. This woman is the reason you have the diamonds on your fingers and the house you live in and the car you drive." He turned back to Maya and took her hands in his, holding them like they were made of gold. 25 years ago, I was a homeless teenager dying from an overdose in a Chicago alley. This woman found me. She was a nurse working a double shift, and she was walking home through that alley. She saved my life. The restaurant was completely silent as Richard told his story. His voice shook with emotion, but he didn't stop. He needed Victoria to understand. He needed everyone to understand. She didn't just call an ambulance and leave. She stayed with me in the hospital for 3 days because I had no one else. She held my hand when I went through withdrawal. She convinced the doctor to put me in a rehabilitation program instead of throwing me back on the streets. And when I finished that program, she helped me get my first job at a grocery store. Richard's tears were falling freely now, and he didn't try to hide them. Maya was crying too, silently, holding onto his hands. She remembered that scared boy from so many years ago. She remembered his pale face and his weak pulse and the way he begged her not to let him die. She had thought about him often over the years, wondering what happened to him, praying that he had found his way. She never imagined that he had become this successful man standing before her, and she never dreamed their paths would cross again in such a painful way. "I tried to find you for years," Richard continued, looking into Maya's eyes. "After I got sober, after I started my company, after I made my first $1 million, I searched everywhere. But you had moved. The hospital where you worked had closed. I even hired private investigators, but they couldn't find you. I wanted to thank you. I wanted to repay you for everything you did." He squeezed her hands tighter. "Maya, I owe you my entire life. Without you, I would have died in that alley at 17 years old. I would have been just another dead, homeless kid that nobody cared about. But you cared. You stayed. You fought for me when I had no strength left to fight for myself." Victoria's face had gone white. She was looking at Maya differently now, not with hatred, but with fear and shame. She suddenly understood the weight of what she had done. She had spat on the woman who made everything in her luxurious life possible. Without Maya, there would be no Richard. Without Richard, there would be no mansion, no diamonds, no designer dresses. She had spat on her own blessing without knowing it. Richard finally let go of Maya's hands and turned to face his wife. The love that used to be in his eyes when he looked at her was gone, replaced by cold disappointment. "I watched you spit on this woman," he said quietly, each word cutting like a blade. "I watched you treat her like she was nothing. And the worst part is, I know this isn't the first time. I've seen how you treat servers and maids and drivers. I just made excuses for you. I told myself you were stressed, that you didn't mean it. But today I saw who you really are, Victoria. Today I saw the ugliness inside you." Victoria reached for him, her diamonds sparkling under the restaurant lights. "Richard, please. I didn't know who she was. If I had known," but he stepped away from her touch. "That's exactly the problem," he interrupted. "You didn't know who she was. So, you thought it was okay to treat her like garbage. You thought it was okay to spit on a stranger just because she was serving you coffee. You treated her as less than human because of the color of her skin and the uniform she was wearing." He shook his head slowly, and something in his face told Victoria that their marriage was over. Maya stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Richard's arm. "Son, please don't do anything in anger that you'll regret tomorrow," she said softly, using the same voice she had used to comfort him in that hospital bed so many years ago. "Marriage is a sacred thing. Your wife made a terrible mistake today, but people can change. People can learn." Everyone in the restaurant was watching this moment, holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen. The young mother had tears in her eyes. The elderly man by the window was nodding slowly, amazed by Maya's grace under fire. Even the cook, Robert, was wiping his eyes with his apron. Maya had just been spat on, humiliated in front of everyone, and yet here she was trying to save the marriage of the woman who attacked her. This was who Maya Johnson was. This was who she had always been. A healer, a giver, someone who saw the best in people even when they showed their worst. Richard looked at Maya with wonder, the same wonder he had felt 25 years ago when she refused to leave his bedside. "How can you defend her after what she did to you?" Richard asked, genuinely confused. Maya smiled, and it was a warm smile despite everything. "Because I've been angry before, and it almost destroyed me," she explained. "After my husband died, I was so angry at the world. I was angry at God for taking him. I was angry at the doctors for not saving him. I was angry at myself for not doing more. That anger ate me up inside for years until I realized something important. Anger only hurts the person carrying it. Your wife has something hurting inside her, something that makes her want to hurt others. That doesn't excuse what she did, but understanding it might help her heal." She turned to Victoria, who was crying now, her mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. "Ma'am, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I hope one day you figure out why you have so much hate in your heart, and I hope you find a way to let it go." The words hit Victoria harder than any slap or curse ever could, and she fell to her knees right there in the middle of the restaurant. Victoria sobbed on the floor, her expensive dress getting dirty, her perfect hair falling apart, her pride completely shattered. "I'm so sorry," she cried, looking up at Maya. "I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know why I treat people this way. My mother was the same, and her mother before her. We were raised to think we were better than everyone else, and I never questioned it. I never stopped to think about how wrong it was." She grabbed Maya's hand and pressed it against her tear-soaked face. "Please forgive me. I know I don't deserve it, but please." It was the first genuine moment Victoria had shown in years, maybe in her entire life. The mask of superiority had cracked, and underneath was just a broken woman who had been taught to hate instead of love. Maya knelt down beside her, ignoring the pain in her knees, and wrapped her arms around Victoria in a hug. The whole restaurant gasped again, but this time in amazement. Here was a woman embracing the person who had spat in her face just minutes ago. Here was grace that seemed almost impossible to understand. Richard watched his wife collapse in Maya's arms, and something shifted inside his chest. He saw Victoria's walls crumbling down. He saw the scared little girl underneath the cruel woman, the child who had never been taught kindness. He remembered why he had married her in the first place, back when she showed him glimpses of softness before she built those walls back up again. Maybe, just maybe, this moment could be the beginning of something new. He knelt down beside both women and put his arms around them, creating a circle of forgiveness right there on the floor of Rosie's diner. The customers began to clap, slowly at first, then louder and louder until the whole restaurant was filled with applause. The young mother was sobbing. The elderly man was standing and clapping with tears on his wrinkled cheeks. Even Robert the cook was cheering from the kitchen doorway. This was a moment none of them would ever forget. A moment where hatred was defeated by love, where cruelty was overcome by compassion, where a broken woman was given a chance to become whole. Later that evening, after the restaurant had closed and the other customers had gone home, Richard, Victoria, and Maya sat together at a booth in the corner. Richard insisted on hearing Maya's whole story. How she had moved from Chicago to Atlanta to be closer to her grandchildren. How she had retired from nursing, but missed helping people so much that she took the job at the diner. Maya told them about her late husband, James, a good man who worked construction, and loved her with all his heart for 32 years. She told them about her 2 children, both doctors now, who had learned from watching their mother that serving others was the highest calling. And Richard told Maya about his journey after she saved him, how he started a tech company in his garage, how it grew into a multi-million-dollar business, how he never forgot the woman who believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. Victoria listened quietly, truly listening for the first time in her life, letting these stories change something deep inside her. When they finally left the restaurant that night, Victoria made Richard stop the car at a homeless shelter they passed. She asked to go inside, and there she made a donation of $50,000 and promised to volunteer every Saturday. Richard watched his wife talk to the homeless people with respect and kindness, and he saw a new woman being born in front of his eyes. Maya had done it again? She had saved another life without even trying. The shelter manager asked Victoria why she wanted to help, and Victoria pointed at the ragged people around her. "Because someone once helped my husband when he looked just like them," she said. "Because someone showed him grace when he deserved nothing. And because today, that same someone showed me that it's never too late to become a better person." She found a young woman about 17 years old sitting alone in the corner, looking scared and hopeless. Victoria sat down beside her and held her hand, and for the first time in her life, she gave instead of took. 6 months later, Richard and Victoria returned to Rosie's diner for their anniversary dinner. They asked specifically for Maya's section, and when she came to their table, they all embraced like old friends. Victoria had changed so much that even her own mother didn't recognize her. She had stopped wearing her expensive jewelry, choosing instead to donate most of it to charity. She had started a foundation that helped homeless youth get access to rehabilitation and education programs, naming it Maya's Grace in honor of the woman who transformed her life. The restaurant was busy that night, full of families and couples enjoying their meals. But for Richard and Victoria, there was only Maya. They ordered coffee, the same coffee that had started everything, and they laughed about it now because pain turns to joy when enough time passes. Maya served them with the same kindness she showed everyone, because she didn't treat them special just because they were rich. To her, every person who walked through that door deserved love and respect, from the CEO to the construction worker to the single mother counting her coins. As Maya walked away to check on her other tables, Victoria grabbed Richard's hand across the table. "I think about that day every morning when I wake up," she admitted quietly. "I think about who I was and who I could have stayed forever. Sometimes it scares me how close I came to living my whole life filled with hate." Richard squeezed her hand and nodded. "But you didn't stay that way. You chose to change, and that choice means everything." They watched Maya moving around the restaurant, refilling coffee cups and sharing smiles, spreading warmth wherever she went. She was just a waitress to most people who saw her. They would never know that she had spent 40 years saving lives in emergency rooms. They would never know that she had pulled a dying teenager from death's door and set him on the path to success. They would never know the depth of grace that lived in her heart. and that was exactly how Maya wanted it. She didn't need recognition or fame. She just needed to serve, to give, to love. That was enough for her. That was everything. At the end of the night, as Richard left $1,000 tip on the table, Maya caught his arm and whispered something in his ear that made him cry. "I'm proud of you, son," she said. "Not because of your money or your success, but because you became a good man, and now you're helping your wife become a good woman. That's the best gift you could ever give me." Richard hugged her tight, the same way he had hugged her in that hospital room 25 years ago. And he finally understood what Maya had been trying to teach everyone all along. True wealth has nothing to do with money or status or power. True wealth is measured by how much love you give, how many lives you touch, and how much grace you show to those who don't deserve it. As they walked out of Rosie's diner that night, Victoria paused at the door and looked back at Maya one last time. She smiled, a real smile, a healed smile, and she silently mouthed 2 words, "Thank you," and Maya nodded, knowing her work was complete, understanding once again that kindness is the only weapon that can destroy hate without creating more of it.